Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Orman. Today we'll talk about the DeAndre Hopkins signing and a few other unrelated football stories. But we'll lead off today with a little bit of baseball and the Royals beginning the second half of the season. Maybe first as to kick off the topic for today. Do you like that they call the second half of the season, even though it isn't actually half the season? They've already played about 10 games more than half. Do you like the divider of the halfway mark of the All-Star break not being halfway through the season? Or does it matter to you at all?
Well, in some ways, I guess it does matter because it's technically not half. The second half of the season starts with game 82 and goes through game 162.
Yes.
But it is also easier to divide the season before and after the All-Star break. And maybe you could argue the playoffs are part of that second half and kind of make it more even with string. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't really bother me, but in
No.
some ways, I guess you could just say, well, the second segment of
Yes.
the season,
I was gonna
or
I
the
was gonna suggest that as an
second
alternate.
part,
You
the
would
second
prefer this.
part of the season
Yeah. Baseball
segment.
part two.
Yeah. The stretch run, maybe you could call it.
Yeah.
I don't know what do they call. I haven't followed like stock car race. What do they follow, the chase for the cup part of? Do they still do that in like the Winston Cup, or I guess what is it? It's not Nextel Sprint Cup anymore.
I think
I
you're
don't.
asking the wrong person about this, Mike, because I don't have any idea. I don't follow that
Oh, it's just called
enough.
the NASCAR Cup Series. Okay, that's what
The
it's called.
NASCAR Cup.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
called stuff. Oh, it was the Monster Energy drink was the last one, and then they decided we're just going to call it the NASCAR Cup, which is kind of stupid. But um,
Maybe it's less stupid because it's not sponsored. I don't know.
I
Is that
guess, but but like when it was the Winston, it was sponsored by a cigarette company that was very on brand for,
yeah.
um, I think for the for NASCAR, and then
You prefer that to the G League for the NBA instead of the developmental league, the G League? Now it's the G League for Gatorade because it is
yeah,
sponsored.
I know. I guess I always thought of, well, the NBA is a little classier than NASCAR, um, so I don't like the sponsorship as much for like that kind of sport, but for like racing, like you have like billboards and just crap all over your cars traditionally. So like there's no like,
Cars, the
yeah,
the,
it's
racing
just
suits
like
and
the
everything.
worst
Yeah.
excesses of Southern capitalism that you put on the car. And like I guess
Yeah.
you had some of that in Major League Baseball. I guess you do again now there are like ads on the fences and things like that. It's kind of an old timey kind of thing, but like, and I guess the NBA now has ads on uniforms
And ad, I think, right?
and
It's just
one ad.
ad. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's
big.
not quite like or like soccer where it's like all you see is the sponsor and you don't really even know what team it is other than like, oh, you know the sponsor this year, but it's going to switch. And like there's like that little crest that says Manchester United or whatever. Usually it's
Right. Or I mean,
T-Mobile
even the UFC
win.
used to have like an excessive amount of ads, like on banners behind the fighter and on the fighters, like whatever
Yeah.
they're using in the ring. And then like I think Reebok signed a uniform deal with them, and then so it was everything had to be just a single uniform, had to be their uniform, couldn't be anything else. So even that got pulled out of UFC. So is UFC classier than NASCAR now,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
possibly Major League Baseball.
I didn't realize that Reebok
Or the
went back
NBA.
to the old Reebok logo. You
Yeah.
remember they had that triangle for a while
Yeah.
instead of they had like the for a while it was like the two-part Puma and stripe for most of the time, and then became that weird
Yes.
triangle. Now it's back
Right.
to the two-part Puma stripe thing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And like Asics has like one more line that goes
Yes.
across, and like those shoe logos are all very very similar. Like,
There's
um,
only so much real estate to work with on a shoe,
I
though.
guess, but like I can
With
see
the
why
boots.
the Reebok decided to go for that weird triangle, but Converse was a little different because it's got a little star and that little it had that little chevron star thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but like yeah, those other ones they all were pretty, yeah, Puma, and Asics and Reebok especially were all basically the same, and Nike was just kind of an upturned one, and then
Yeah.
like K-Swiss and Adidas were just stripes, and it was, yeah, it's a little bit silly, but I guess that's what you wrote.
All of this is just to avoid saying that the UFC was classier than something else. Was that?
Yeah, well, I don't know if the US. I don't think the US. I think the UFC is not classier than. I'm trying to think. It's classier than like a cockfighting organization. We'll say that. Um, Maybe classier than dog racing. I wouldn't put it as classier than horse racing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Probably fewer deaths.
Well, fewer animal deaths, but I I like. Well, I prefer. I'm of that old timiness. I still prefer boxing
Sure,
to
that's fine.
UFC, and I still would like to live in a world where boxing, horse racing, and baseball are the top three sports. I still like the NFL. That's really I like that, but I like that kind of old world. So
Yes.
we were talking about baseball earlier, so maybe that I guess that could be a segue back into baseball.
Sure.
The purity and the kind of old timiness that baseball brings, and but now I guess you could say it's not the same because it's timed in some ways now. You have pitch
Right.
clocks and things like that, but
It seems like they've taken 20 plus minutes off of the average game time this season with the
yeah,
pitch
that's
clock. 26 minutes, 28 minutes, something like that.
yeah, that's it's been a lot. It says MLB day, at least by April, game times are down 31 minutes.
I think they've gone
And
up just a tick since then. So I think they're still
okay,
like, the 27, 28 minutes, somewhere in that area is what they're on average.
yeah, according to, it was 2 hours and 38 minutes for 2023 is the last time I see it, or it's somewhere around 237, 238 ish.
Hmm.
And I think it was probably 3 hours. There's does
Yeah,
uh
it was close to it, I think. Yeah.
yeah. I don't think they have probably the newest stats for game length um up here yet, but I like the shorter games. I guess that has caused different problems. Like we talked about beer sales being extended into the later innings, um, which may be a slight higher risk of drunk driving, but I think I was more of a symbolic gesture than really anything.
Hmm.
Because like if you're tailgating, like, people keep beer in their cars and stuff like that. So it's
Right.
not like it really like at the Chiefs game or whatever. Like people are drinking as they're driving out of the stadium,
Hmm.
in a lot of cases. So um it's not yeah, I think I think going selling it into the eighth inning rather than into the seventh inning was okay.
No,
Um, but have you been to any Royals games lately?
not
You went
lately.
you went opening day. Have you been to any since?
That is all.
Hmm.
I've been watching a lot of games, but not live and not in
Not
person.
participant.
It's been too uncomfortably hot in Kansas City for the last couple of weeks. I couldn't even imagine going out there to sit for
Mm.
90 plus degree weather to watch them play very terribly.
Has Kansas City? I know a little bit. Have they experienced the wildfire smoke
Hmm.
a lot?
No, I don't think so. I haven't
Okay.
noticed it.
Here in Pennsylvania, like today and yesterday and like a few weeks ago, like if you go outside, it smells like a campfire.
So you
It's
can you just always have a quality in the air that you can pick
yeah, you
up,
can
or
see
or
it
is
and
it
it like
you physically
it,
see it everywhere?
you can physically see how hazy it is,
Yeah.
and like it's foggy like sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
just smoke, and you feel dirty just walking outside. It's a little bit
Hmm.
like probably living in Pittsburgh like in the 60s probably would have been, or Los Angeles in the 60s, um, with like that hazy kind of smog. And yeah, it's been
Yeah.
really bad, the wildfires. So they now it's the wildfires from I think the Alberta,
Mm.
Canada region. Before it was like the Quebec wildfires that were coming in. So now it's yes, like yeah, the air quality. Like if you look, like my phone has like forecasts, and like I had never seen like an air quality alert on my phone before, but now like every day I look for
Each
it, and
day, a new air
yeah,
quality alert.
yeah. So right now it says here in Frostburg the air quality is 59 moderate. In State College it's 108 right now, unhealthy for sensitive groups, and it's been like
Nice.
up to 200 in at times. Pittsburgh in State College farther up. Um, but yeah, it's 94 right now in Pittsburgh. But like I'm gonna look at Kansas City. I'm on my phone here. Um,
I was just trying to open my phone to see if it had that even in
it says
the.
50. This is 54 right now, moderate.
Hmm.
But like before, like this summer, like it was
Oh,
like moderate
mine
was
says
like
36 for where I am right now in
okay,
Olathe.
okay. So farther north you are, probably the worse it is.
Maybe.
Um, but like I had never noticed that feature, or if like it had been on. Like I don't think I'd ever seen it even get to moderate before.
Yeah.
And now like moderate is like
The norm.
the norm for this summer, and it's been
Wow.
yeah. It's like right now it's a unhealthy for sensitive groups. When it gets like to 130 or so, it's just like unhealthy for anybody to be outside.
Yeah.
And like it's like when you go out, you feel like you've smoked cigarettes if you stay outside too long.
Well, I almost don't want to even say this, but in that scenario, if you're smoking a cigarette, you might actually have a better chance because you'd at least be drawing air through the filter of the
Ooh, through the
cigarette.
filter. Yeah, yeah. Although they're technically not allowed to say that filters are healthier, even though they have to be because they do filter some stuff in. Like it's just one of those things where it's like, well, you can't say that jumping off a 20-foot bridge is safer than jumping off a 40-foot bridge, which it is. You still might get hurt, but like it's just it's because well we don't want to send the wrong message, so we can't say it's.
Yeah.
But smoking like a filtered cigarette is safer than smoking a non-filtered cigarette just by I guess maybe you could say, well, maybe there's stuff in the filter that is really bad and cancer causing, but like, um, I don't know. That's like saying
Chances are,
yeah.
if you were to like cut the filter off, that would be worse. Just have the tobacco
It'd be worse
directly.
to smoke probably the filter than it would be to smoke the tobacco because
Well,
it
tobacco
probably
shouldn't be
has
flammable though, right? So
what?
it
Well,
shouldn't be
you can
flammable.
kind of set a filter on fire. It doesn't really burn very easily.
Yeah,
Um,
it shouldn't be. It should be like cotton or something, right? Isn't that?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's mostly like that. Yeah, it's some
It's
sort
probably
of
not a very good filter though, but
yeah. But
yes.
you like
That
if
was
you
by no means an endorsement of smoking.
yeah.
I was just
But if you smoke a cigarette and you take the you have a filter, you can take it apart and you can see all of the like the brown stuff, and that brown
oh.
stuff would have gotten into you, but
Mm,
it didn't. So,
mm.
although maybe you could also say, well, if you have a cigarette or a cigar and it's not filtered, you don't breathe in as heavily as you might if you have the filter. So I guess that's another.
Yeah.
But now, if you smoke like marijuana or something, you're still you breathe that in very deeply. So uh,
Yeah.
it's I guess it doesn't have quite the tar. I don't know, but it's a
Less processing, I think, is what
yeah.
I think
Just
that's actually what the issue is.
well, just being outside is like
Is a risk in itself
is
now.
has been like a cigarette kind of uh,
Type.
even keeping the windows open. Yeah, you really just need to like close your windows and have the air conditioning on if you
Wow.
can here. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's been so bad. Yeah, in Maryland, not quite as bad as farther up in Pennsylvania, but like New York City, uh, Central Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh have been pretty air quality. And um, yeah, like if you Google Pittsburgh air quality like photos or whatever, you'll find
Yeah.
smoky. Like just Google Pittsburgh air quality and then go to images,
Yeah.
and you can see how these are like all from this year or this past summer, like how smoky and cloudy it is, and that's what Pittsburgh would have been like with all this probably the steel and coal industry being so big. It hasn't been bad.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great image.
30 plus years, yeah. You can like see the buildings downtown, sort of, and yeah,
Yeah. Yikes.
yeah. But that's so. I guess that's been the big weather story around this parts, and the Pirates. Maybe that's why the Pirates aren't doing as well. They've had a
Hmm.
strong start, but then they're fading. They're not quite as bad as the Royals, but I think they might not make my over of 68 wins or whatever it was uh, that I had predicted. But the Royals certainly are going to be under, and you were really
69 and
upset.
a half. Or no, 67 and a half for the Pirates.
Okay, so 68. I think it's 68 or more. That's still
Yeah.
possible, but it could be 68 and
Oh, they have really dropped.
94.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, the Pirates have been bad lately, uh, and I wonder if it's the air quality.
Could be. Wow. Yeah.
But
I
everybody
think
else has to play
most
in that
most of the
area.
bets I had made are all looking very terrible right now. I guess the Dodgers have taken off, so maybe they're back in contention. But for my bet,
Yeah, yeah.
other than that, I think I am going to miss three of the four for
I,
sure.
I I I
The
still
fourth
have
one, maybe.
I have three possible that I could get the Pirates could still go over. I think the Red Sox are probably going to be over. I think there are 70 over 78, and right now they're 6 games over 500.
Yeah, so
And
that's in good shape.
Pirates still might finish under, but it looks like maybe not.
Tigers one's gonna be close.
Yeah, the Tigers one's gonna be close too. I meant the Tigers last time I said Pirates, but yeah, Andrew McCutchen was really sparking Pittsburgh for a while, but
Yeah.
they've faded in over the last couple of weeks. I haven't been to any games, but maybe the Paul Skeens um, draft pick, number one overall, he signed to a record signing bonus today.
Really?
Yeah, 9.2 million, highest, largest MLB draft bonus ever doled out to a player. So we'll talk
Actually,
about that.
under slot value.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, 9.7 was the slot value. So
Oh, I
they
guess
actually got a bargain.
I guess some people were surprised that maybe Skeens was the number one pick, so maybe that's why they did it. I don't know. Um, he was one of the top three for sure, they thought,
Hmm.
and so we'll see what happens with the old Pirates. But the Royals, we can talk about. Do you want to talk about the draft? Do you want to talk about how the Royals are doing right now? Because I know you have some concerns and some criticisms, some vitriol, perhaps
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
for the Royals and their current management, or just how they're playing the game,
Decision making, right?
decision
Because
making. Yeah,
we've talked about this kind of a lot this season about how you can be, if you have a good team, sometimes you can make dumb mistakes and overcome them. If you have a bad team, like your best chance is to at least be smart about it, and like maybe you can steal a couple of games. Like maybe you don't have the most talent, but you can still win if you are smarter than your opponent, say. And oof, this last couple days have been really rough watching the Royals management make decisions. Yeah, they're came out of the All-Star break with the rain out, and then played a doubleheader, which didn't look very good. Like, uh, it's probably not the first thing you want to do is play a much better team in a doubleheader. Not,
yeah, and perhaps a team that was a little bit irritated that the Royals played well against them earlier. The Rays are still the top team in the American League, but they've not been able to have their keep the
mm.
momentum that they had from the earliest days of the season. So, yeah, the Royals lost two in a row, and they've lost. Well, they're two. I guess they're 2-3 now after they won tonight, 11-10 over
Well,
the.
they dropped the first two games in the doubleheader, and then they beat the Rays in the third game. I think they had 9 runs in the game too, so it was like kind of an outburst of scoring after the lax play in the day before. Then they played the Tigers, who are a much weaker team than the Rays, at least anyway. And most of what I noticed, at least anyway, was in a Monday night game. which I thought was entertaining. I thought I'd run through the sequence of events, and when the decision making started, I believe every decision that was made was wrong before they actually, like, who they selected to do each thing basically was
Hmm.
the wrong person or the wrong choice made entirely by management, not players. This is not the players' fault. This is how the players are being used.
Seems a little like you're going to talk about Chernobyl type of situation. There wasn't a real meltdown, but maybe way
Hmm.
the did you see the series Chernobyl?
I did, yeah.
That was
So
interesting.
in this case, this was just me melting down watching the game
Mhm,
happen,
mhm.
not
Not there wasn't not fissionable material.
fissile material.
Yeah, fissile. That's what it is. Yeah, well done.
Yes. But yeah, so in this game, the Royals actually managed to get a 2-run lead through the top of the 7th inning. So the Royals are batting now in the bottom of the 7th, up to, this is a Jordan Lyles start, so it is a highly unlikely to win
Yeah,
game to begin
and
with.
he's one.
Yet he had taken them, 2 through 7 solid innings, no runs allowed. Not too bad.
Yeah,
Very, I mean,
he's really heating up
right,
after his 0-15 start or whatever it was. So
right, right.
starting to get in the groove.
So in this scenario that just happened though was the Royals actually got the first 2 batters on base. So it's first and second, nobody out. Drew Waters coming to the plate, who they had spent most of the early part of the game talking about how great he has been batting this season, this last week or so.
Hmm.
Multiple home runs, hit a couple triples, driven in a lot of runs. He was asked to bunt, which is one of the things I find annoying. In the scenario, it's like sort of okay, but knowing where he is in the lineup, not a great choice because that's the 8-9 hitters coming up behind him. You're less likely to get, guys. So seemingly in this scenario, this is the best time to try to just get a hit. And he tries to bunt. It does not go well. The second attempt at the bunt, I believe he like hit into himself, where he spent some time on the ground, and then he struck out on a pitch not even close to the zone on the third pitch. So it was just an awful at bat from him. But he shouldn't have been in this situation to be asked to bunt, though. That's one. Next, they ended up pinch hitting for the next batter, which was Michael Massey, using Matt Duffy as the pinch hitter, even though Nicky Lopez is the next batter coming up, who should definitely be pinch hit for in every scenario.
We know your
Um,
disdain for Nicky Lopez on this program.
Duffy did like hit the ball well, but it was like it was a center fielder made a nice catch, and second out, no runners have moved up. So Lopez is up then with 2 outs and 2 on, strikes out, which is what he does in that scenario. Then top of the 8th begins. They bring out the pitcher who, in his last time he pitched an 8th inning, gave up 5 runs in a third of an inning. Okay,
That's not. Yeah.
I'd just seen him do something similar in just about a week ago. So he gives up a double, gets a pop out, and then a strikeout, and then he can't find a strike zone. He hits the next guy, walks the guy after that. Bases loaded, 2 outs. Then change pitchers to Jose Cuas, who I know we talked about this about 2 weeks ago, that there is one pitcher that should never come into games with guys on base because he lets them all in every time. I believe now he's been in a game where he's had guys on. He's had 36 inherited runners. I believe now 20 of them have scored, which is much worse than league average.
That is really
And
high.
it's a lot of, it's a lot of times to come in the scenario one, but now that you have data on it, he shouldn't be coming into games with guys on base. He couldn't throw strikes to start with, walk the first guy. So now it's 2-1 without even, doing anything at all. Double to the next batter. So now the other 2 runs have scored, and the Royals, lose the game basically, right? Not quite right there, but, in that scenario. So there are like 6 decisions made by the manager in a row. All of them were bad, and it's you know, who do you go to in these scenarios rather than who they actually did bring in. The answer is it wouldn't have mattered who they went to. It would have been a better choice than what they did
So you think
based on
any?
past performance, past recent performance. Even Clark's not the eighth inning guy. He can't be the eighth inning guy. There's no reason to go to him in the eighth inning ever. Quas should never be coming into games with guys on base. Now, if they started the inning with Quas, then they'd at least say that, well, we thought he would do okay. So there's nobody on base, so his ERA is relatively low. That would have been a fine decision to make, I think, as a manager, but it was just very dumb. And these are things that we've already seen them do this season. It's not even new. It's like, or throwing them into an unknown scenario. They're known scenarios, and we know that they don't do well in these scenarios. So management takes that loss, in my opinion. I don't think the players are really at fault. They're just playing the game the way they play them, and the manager and management are not using them in a way that makes any sense.
Yeah, I guess do they put him on in the middle of the inning because he has a sidearm delivery and they think that will surprise the person who is batting after they've seen the overhand pitcher uh
I
come
think
in?
that's what
Is that maybe the reason?
but then they also had another guy on the roster briefly, not very long ago, that actually was good in the scenario of having guys on base with an odd arm delivery, was Amir Garrett. And they
Yeah.
just let him go. I mean, they just released him
Yeah,
with
he
no.
had like a good game and was there like a
They needed
some
a
sort
roster spot
hmm.
for a call up, and they decided he was the odd man out. But they kept Quas and they kept Taylor Clark, who they probably could have released both of them.
Yeah, and they brought up Yarbrough when instead of keeping Garrett, I guess.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
it. That was they'd let Garrett go when Yarbrough was called up. That's it. Yeah.
why? Yeah, Yarbrough's really not good, but
Yeah.
Garrett was having a better year than Yarbrough. I
He
guess
did.
Yarbrough was a starter and Garrett's a reliever,
Yeah. But yeah.
but Garrett had uh, in 27 games he had 28 strikeouts in 24 and a third innings pitched, a 3.33 ERA, which is pretty good, especially for a Royals reliever in this day and age. Yeah, I don't understand the Amir Garrett. He must have like had some personality clash, or because like
Yeah.
he was designated for assignment and then now he's been released. So I guess he didn't want to go to Omaha
And
again.
or nobody wanted to trade for him either. So
Yeah, he was just released, I guess, on July 15th. So it's only been a few days. So
I
maybe.
think when they designated him for assignment, I think they could look for trade partners, and
Yeah, I think that's like a
they
wait.
must not
Yeah.
have found anybody. So an outright release is
So nobody
it's
wanted, yeah,
sad
yeah, would have had to
ending.
claim him off waivers. And so like he's making 2.65 million this year.
Yeah.
So which isn't very much for a lot of teams, but I guess it's more than the minimum. So maybe they're going to restructure. But like, yeah, it's a little odd that the Royals signed him for that much and then
Well,
decided
so
just to get.
well, so now another team could sign him for the league minimum, and the Royals are still on the hook for the remainder of his salary for the season anyway. So
Yeah,
is that
I don't. Yeah, it does.
basically,
I guess he was the most expendable of the 40-man roster, but
well,
I don't like it. Like you had said earlier this season, even before the season started, and it's really become true. The Royals signed a lot of guys for some unknown reason, really. Like a lot of kind of journeymen who they thought, I guess, would give this Royals team a kind of respectable aura or something and be able to like pitch some innings while the young guys were not exposed to too many kind of difficult situations. But
sure.
they've been worse than the Royals kind of regular guys, or at least just as bad, and making more money. So why not just go with the homegrown
It seemed like, yeah,
scrubs
it
rather
should
than
have
the
been the year of the let the kids play, and that should have just been the motto.
yeah.
They could have brought some veterans in to sort of like help mold them from the background, and then to jump in if they struggled. But it seemed like the Royals were trying to use some of those guys to see if they could build trade pieces out of them, which means they need full-time playing
Yeah.
opportunities to try to build that sort of like, history to.
It worked for Chapman. That was about it.
But they
Jack,
still, I don't think they got enough for him.
yeah,
Realistic, I think if they had him be an actual closer and could win games, then that would have been a much better showcase of his talent than to be an eighth inning guy on the worst team in the league.
yeah. I don't know why he was
What does that
below
what does that
Barlow.
mean?
Now they're trying to shot Barlow probably, but Barlow had let four runs in the ninth tonight to almost lose the game for the Royals. So it's been
But if they're following that same
moving
model, they should actually have him be the eighth inning guy now and have somebody else be the ninth inning guy.
there.
Right? If
I
that's
guess
the model that they're even trying to go from their own scheme, they don't make any sense. It doesn't make sense. Like
they don't want to mess with a good thing.
like you can't draw a box or anything they do and say this is how they do things, because there is no rhyme or reason to any of it, even if you're trying to look at it from the lens of a crazy person. There's
I
nothing to make sense of this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and they've just been so
And
bad.
even today's lineup, I thought on paper was possibly the worst lineup I've ever seen a franchise put down as a lineup card. And somehow they scored 11 runs today, Mike. I don't know. It seems like the players just overcome, or have in this case overcame at least their own management today, to barely hold on to win with scoring 11 runs. Maybe the
Yeah,
bright spot though was the 4-for-4 game from Tyron Blanco though today. Did you see what he had done tonight?
he was 4 for 4. Was there? I think it was 3 extra base hits, including a triple,
Two doubles and a
two
triple.
doubles and a triple, becoming
Yeah,
Curtis Granderson like almost tonight's
yeah.
game,
Drove
or
in 3 runs,
more of a
scored
Paulo
11.
Orlando probably is more of an approachable figure
Yeah,
than Granderson was actually a really good player, but he was one of those guys who like filled the stat sheet with every type of hit. He had lots of doubles, lots of triples, lots of home runs, and he's, I guess, probably borderline. Do you think of him as a borderline Hall of Fame player, Granderson, or is he below that level?
probably nearly, but he probably won't make it. That would be my guess. He could be borderline at best.
He's worth. I'm just looking at Granderson's stats right now. I know him. So he played for the Tigers for a long time. Then he played for some Yankees teams, and I think he won
Mm-hmm.
World Series with them. Then he played for the Mets. And then he had a few different teams at the end of his career. So he played for some like Yankees and Mets. So that's kind of he was in the spotlight a
He was
lot.
on the 15 Mets team, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was their one of their best players. He had 26 home runs, 70 RBIs that year, 821 OPS, 127 OPS plus. So he was he was a solid player. He's worth about 47 WAR over his lengthy career, which I don't it is probably not enough for a Hall of Fame
So
case.
you did play in 3 World Series, but they did not win.
Oh, they didn't
In
win
it,
any of them.
yeah.
He played. I guess he probably played in two with Detroit.
One with Detroit
The one
in
with Detroit, one with the
06,
Yankees, and then one with the Mets.
one with the Mets in 15, and then I lost it.
One with the Yankees probably, and
You would think, right? Oh, here it is. And then he was 2017 Dodgers when they lost to
2017 Dodgers.
when they
Okay.
lost to the Astros, but he didn't actually play in the series, but he was on the roster.
Yeah, Granderson. I don't. Yeah, he's not a Hall of Fame player. He was a good player for a long time,
Yeah.
and he had some really good uh, years. He had 23 triples in 2007. He had 38 doubles, 23 triples, 23 home runs. That's a George Brett kind of stat in terms of the number of extra base hits.
Yeah,
That's
Baseball
kind of
Reference has him on the Hall of Fame monitor at 61, with likely Hall of Famer needed. The score is 100. So
okay.
apparently short.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, short. Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's, but they kind of have him as similar to like Ron Gant. And
Yeah, he did a lot of writing, I think, for MLB too. It's his articles are pretty good. I don't know if you've ever read any of them.
yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, I liked Granderson. I think
Yeah,
um seemed like a smart guy and a good player, and like he knew like how to run the bases as well. Like he was
yeah,
like
the
he
high
was
baseball IQ, right?
situationally very aware.
Yeah,
And yeah, I liked him as a player. Um, and I was thinking, well, like if Scott Rowland can make the Hall of Fame, why not Curtis Granderson? But
yeah.
Rowland was much higher. Like batting, they were somewhat similar, but Rowland had a much higher defensive value according to baseball.
Yeah, I wonder where Roland fell on his on that Hall of Fame monitor stat too, if that was close or not. I'll
Yeah,
have it here.
Rowland
Hall of Fame monitor.
was
Oh, he's 99 on the Hall of Fame monitor.
yeah, so he was
Yeah,
higher.
100. So just right at the cutoff is what, according to that
Yeah,
metric. I don't know
yeah,
what goes in the metric, but
but I think um it's because of the fielding that Rowland was seen as a very slick, and he was. I guess the stats do back him up as a very solid third baseman, and he was he's worth 52 WAR in
ooh,
batting and offensive WAR at 21 WAR
you.
defensively.
Because we were looking at the like Jeter list last week, right? Wasn't that?
Yes,
And his D WAR number was like -10, I think, or something, even for somebody who's like an expected first ballot Hall of Famer.
yeah, and if you look at total WAR, Jeter was 71.3. Scott Rowland was 70.1. So they're very close in
Yeah,
total WAR. But Jeter's batting was a lot better, but his defensive stuff really pulled him down. And you wonder if Jeter had played third though, like when A-Rod, when he was on the team, he was a better defensive shortstop than Jeter was. He
much
should have
better.
played he should have played short, and Jeter maybe should have played third. And if Jeter had played third, maybe his defensive shortcomings would not have been as um, great because you really it's because you don't need the range. You can react. I think Jeter was very instinctive the way he played.
Yeah,
He was had a very quick reaction, and like that. We talked about that Jason Giambi or Jeremy Giambi throw at a little flip, but that may or may not have actually been out. But like that was a sort of Mahomesian kind of
baseball.
improv.
It was high awareness to get
Yeah,
to the ball and then to relay it as well, right?
yeah. So that was, so even though I don't think either of us are huge Jeter guys, but Granderson seemed like that in that group too. He was a smart
But
player. So was
Jeter's
Roland, of course, but I just never thought of Roland as being more than like an above average hitter, and I guess he was an above average fielder too. Whereas I think so. I guess that both of those counted for uh, accumulating stats. So,
but Jeter's Hall of Fame monitor number is 337,
mm,
well over the 100. 337. I
well,
didn't
he
know they were.
won a lot of championships
Yeah,
and he won a lot of awards. Well, he's
yeah.
rookie of the year. I guess Roland and Jeter were both rookie of the year. He was an all-star, maybe more. Um, he also played in
Oh,
New
so Hall of
York.
Fame monitor does weight more heavily to certain positions, I guess, on championship teams.
Mm. So
Oh, there's
shortstop.
all kinds of crazy rules on this.
Yeah, I know. I've looked at the Hall of Fame monitors more for the NFL than I have for uh,
Yeah,
on Football Reference rather than the Baseball Reference. But and some of the counting stats because Jeter to get over he got over 3,000, Roland
yeah,
didn't. So once you get over three
yeah,
thousand, I mean that's a big deal. Driving in so many runs. Um, yeah,
yeah. Yeah, they had really similar
Mhm.
totals. Home runs and RBIs were actually pretty close. Roland has like 50 more home runs. RBI is almost the same. I didn't know they were that close.
Yeah, and some of the stats I would, yeah, Jeter was the kind of the face of the Yankees for a while, and that, I think that counts
Kind
for a
of facing
lot.
the league, actually, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think especially in the post steroid era, because
Yeah.
um, you know, he was beloved also in New York, whereas A-Rod was not. When
Right.
and that's some of it is just because Alex Rodriguez's personality was it was either phony or kind of mean, and
Yeah.
Jeter, I guess, seemed more genuine in some ways, even if he was also on a Seinfeld, which I he and Gary Sheffield. You remember that one when this
Right.
was it would have been after Jeter's rookie year when they won, or early on in his career when they won the '96 World Series, because George Costanza had joined the Yankees, and the Yankees hadn't been in the playoffs for years and years. I don't think they had been in the playoffs since they won the World Series like in '81 or so.
Oh my
And
God.
when they played they lost the World Series, I think, to the Dodgers in '81, maybe that was what it was. Um,
Tigers? The Tigers were around there, wasn't it?
the Tigers won in '84.
84. Okay.
I think it was the Yankees Dodgers World Series in '81, and I think the Dodgers won that one. I remember. Um, yes, the Dodgers over the Yankees in 6 games. Just
Yep.
as they won in the 1996 World Series over was it the the was it the Braves? Oh, yeah, it was over the Braves in 6 games. And that was when George was talking about how to hit the ball. Was that the episode where he um, stopped having sex, so he became really smart and was able to do everything, and he knew the physics and stuff,
Yeah.
and he was trying to teach Derek Jeter and Gary Sheffield how to hit, and
Proper
and and,
hitting.
and Jeter goes like, well, we won the World Series, and Costanza goes 6 games, and so that's what I think of them about. So he was on Seinfeld, so that gives him a boost. Danny Tartabull, um,
That put him right into the Hall of Fame. Was that just that
yeah,
right there? Was he already
Paul
there?
O'Neill,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How many Yeah. So speaking of Danny Tartabull, how many WAR do you think Danny Tartabull has? He was a very good player for a very long time,
Yeah.
but he only had 23 WAR. He must not have been a very good defensive player.
No, I don't know.
Oh yeah, he was a terrible defensive player. He was
Really?
he was worth 35.5 WAR offensively, minus 18.4 defensively. So
Oh,
that really sapped all of his value. Um,
almost back down to average then, right?
yeah,
Overall.
yeah. Paul O'Neill had more career WAR than Tartabull.
Yeah.
Um, O'Neill also was a below average defensive outfielder, um, uh,
Hmm.
worth more at the plate. So maybe you remember that episode where Paul O'Neill was supposed to hit 2 home runs for the
Yes.
kid in the hospital. Um, he was also supposed to in the second bet that the second arrangement that Kramer made, he was supposed to catch a fly ball in his hat. Uh, and
Right.
I don't know if Paul O'Neill really could do that. But,
Hmm.
of those, yeah, it looks like Granderson has more WAR than Paul O'Neill or Artable. Gary
Yeah.
Sheffield probably he has 60 career
Oh.
WAR. Even though I'm sure he was also a defense. He was worth 81 offensively, minus 27.7 defensively. So he was even more of a liability in the field, or as much of a liability in the field as Danny Tartabull. And the Yankees had some really bad defensive
Hmm.
teams. Looked like they could score a lot of runs, but
Yeah.
with Jeter, Hartable, O'Neill out in the field, none of those guys I don't were uh, were good defensive outfielders.
They were definitely prioritizing hitting over
Yeah,
fielding.
Hideki Matsui was well below as well. I just looked up. So like yeah, it was not so Granderson, I guess, was slightly above average or just slightly average, I guess. So he did better. But yeah, those Yankees teams, yeah, it was in some ways it was the mystique of the Yankees and just being in New York, and it seemed like they were like I don't know, really good, even if um defense, they won a lot of things, but defensively they were only average at best. Like Jorge Posada was kind of um he was worth a total of 2.6 defensive WAR over his career,
Hmm.
40 something total.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think Posada is a possible Hall of Fame player?
Probably not.
His Hall of Fame monitor the batting is 98 out of 100, so
Really?
just one below Roll.
Yeah. Is it when is he up now or
He should be. I just never thought there was much support for him. He retired
yeah.
in 2011, so I don't know if he's still on the ballot even. But I was a little surprised because he seemed like a very popular um, player for those Yankees teams. But yeah, uh,
Yeah, 2011, he's probably off the
yeah,
running now.
yeah. Gary Sheffield also his Hall of Fame batting monitor is well above Hall of Fame standards, but I think he is tainted by the steroid
Yeah.
possibilities. And I don't know about Bernie Williams. He was another very popular. He was also below average in the field. He was worth negative 9.5 defensive WAR. So he was 63 something batting and negative 9.5. So like that was a pretty yeah mediocre to lower to below set of Yankees uh, outfields. I guess at Yankee Stadium you don't have to cover a lot of ground, but
Yeah. So Posada was up in his first year in the ballot was 2017. He fell below the 5% cutoff.
hmm,
Um, Probably because a lot of the steroid guys were around in their, multiple year.
yeah,
Um, like Barry Bonds is in his fifth year and getting half a vote, but not nearly enough to get elected. Manny Ramirez is on his first year, I guess, is all, but Sammy Sosa was there like in his fifth year too, and had just enough to stay on the ballot. But Posada was below the 5% cutoff and
hmm.
was then off after his first attempt anyway. So
Yeah, he was I thought a very one of the best catchers it seemed like
yeah,
in the league, but he was a good hitting catcher at least. I thought he was decent um, defensively.
well
Yeah,
that was
Johnny Damon I just looked up also was a below average outfielder for his career worth negative WAR. So none of those Yankee guys of the aughts were good defensively. I guess yeah,
that
it's
was the
a
year that Jeff Bagwell made it in his seventh year. Tim Raines in his 10th.
why was Bagwell thought not to be a steroid guy?
I don't know.
He seemed like the like
It took 7 attempts to get in though, so it
yeah,
wasn't.
he seemed like the most roidy of all of them with like those
Yeah.
giant arms and like that horrible goatee, and then like Daryl Kyle on the team died because he injected all those drugs and stuff. Like it was like, was he on the Cardinals then, or was he on the Astros? Do you remember that?
Bagwell. Oh,
Daryl Kyle.
I only remember him with the Astros. I don't remember him playing anywhere else.
He was on the Cardinals then. He played with the Astros through '97, 2 years in Colorado, and then the last three of St.
Or
Louis.
Kyle.
Daryl Kyle, yeah.
Yeah.
Bagwell, I think was
Bagwell only played
only
for Houston, so yeah.
yeah, but
I just remember, yeah, Bagwell had those like 2 years in a row where he had a got hit on the hand and broken hand like almost this. It was like almost exactly a year
yeah.
after the first one. It was like the same, almost the same pitch type and like the same location, and it was like the same outcome then too. Broken hand.
Yeah, Bagwell did win an MVP,
Mhm.
um, but yeah,
In the
I
strike shortened year.
okay, yeah. I guess he didn't have the monster home run numbers. Like he didn't have
Yeah.
like he only his high was 47 in a
Mhm.
year, so maybe that helped him slide under the radar,
Baby.
I guess. I thought of him um as one of the guys that probably not that I know of any, but
No.
if 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 they were going to be like everybody else kept out, I don't quite understand why Bagwell got in and
Right.
others didn't. Um,
No. Yeah. There's no real explanation or rhyme or reason to some of this stuff, you know? Yeah.
yeah,
But I think we wanted to follow up just real quickly, I think, on the MLB draft, just to state that the Royals have signed six
six, I believe. Yeah,
picks, including their number one pick, Blake Mitchell, for about a million under slot value. And I think with the total six picks they have, they're almost right at expected. And they have already signed all of their players that had slid in the draft that prospect ranking wise were still available in later rounds than expected. All of those guys have signed. So it seems as though they have the opportunity maybe to save money, which is what it seems like they're doing. What I think I had kind of expected to see after seeing
yeah,
who they did. They would maybe come in under slot value overall, and uh, which I don't know is a great thing to try to save money on. But when you're trying to build from nothing, you
yeah.
know,
It's
yeah,
it's not very much money in the scheme of things when like what you have how many dollars were allocated to the draft? Was it like 18 million or something? I don't remember what the exact number was, but if you
13 for the Royals.
13, okay, so 13 million, you save
But it's like the
300,000.
fifth most or something. So I mean, you actually have the right to spend more than 25 other teams, right? So if you're trying to build your franchise, it seems like money you want to spend
Yeah,
this end
I think having the slots has
to have it be
helped.
more valuable later, right?
Yeah, I think having the slots has helped sign people more easily than have fewer holdouts. I
Yeah,
would
well,
say
because
that,
there's an expectation associated with it, right? So
yeah, I would guess probably the players union isn't a big fan of it, but um, it's it has
but
helped.
there's a lot more guaranteed money than in the past. So yeah, there's more signings and there's more money total for signing than there has been in the past drafts then. So I think in some ways the player union does like it, but there's more there's more actual dollars in the draft though than there used to be, which is
Yeah,
good. Which is good.
and fewer. I guess there are fewer draft picks too. So I guess each person who gets picked will probably get more money that way. But
Because I think even the last draft, the last round, I think it's still a guarantee somewhere around 150K for the signing slot, at least anyway.
yeah,
What the expected is, and I think the Royals even signed a few guys that didn't that were undrafted that they picked up after the draft was over, much like they do in the NFL. So
mhm.
they may fill in a few more slots even with that isn't part of the allocation at least anyway for the draft. Probably didn't want to actually spend too much time on this, but that was all the
Yeah.
only note I was going to make at least anyway. Anything else about the
I don't have any other baseball news. We'll see what happens with the second segment of the season. We're in the summer. Do we want to talk about another upcoming summer sporting event,
sure.
the Women's World Cup, or do you want to talk about your other piece of
Maybe
information
let's
first?
this other football story here real quick.
Or,
Because I tried to disguise it a bit. It is actually a soccer story. So
ooh, football. Yeah.
football, but soccer, American soccer, specifically American soccer. But maybe it's the Europeanization of soccer. Is the arrival of Lionel Messi to the MLS. apparently he arrived in Miami this week, apparently somewhat quietly at an executive airport with no fanfare. Had been spotted shopping for groceries with his family without
I
being
saw that picture. Yeah,
mobbed, which is maybe a nice change for him because apparently he was getting like
I think that's what a lot of big stars in Europe like that they can kind of go
he could
in
like,
under.
out to dinner and like 6,000 people are following him around.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but
Also
he
because they don't look like big athletes in America either, because soccer guys are little,
yeah,
and Americans I think don't think of athletes as being smaller than them. So like
right,
you associate it with basketball players or football guys, or they're all at least 6 feet tall, and
yeah.
yeah.
He's relatively anonymous, apparently, even in Miami. They know he's going to be
Hmm.
there, right? They I guess they introed him last night to the Miami actual like team and crowd,
Inter
and
Miami.
it was in the Inter Miami as their it was in the rain even too. Still like 18,000 people showed up, I guess, to the stadium to welcome him. Uh, I'm not sure if you knew like what he's jumping into. Have you heard about what Inter Miami's team is like this season? This is what I was going to ask you about.
I don't know. I haven't been following MLS. I remember that it would be a lot different um if Sporting KC had signed Cristiano Ronaldo.
Right.
That I think that would have been almost as big a signing as Miami's signing of Lionel Messi. But so what was yeah what's yeah
So
what were you
this is like
saying?
the true test of if a player can affect a team will be this right here. So Inter Miami hasn't won a game since mid-May, apparently. They're five wins, 14 losses, 3 draws. They're last place in the East. Uh, so they have, I believe, 18 points on the season, and they're 12 points back from the last playoff spot. 14 games remaining. Before he joins the team, that says the playoff odds are 2%, just with a single player. But presumably, at least in a few years ago, was the best player in the entire world. What effect do you think he will have on Inter Miami and their chances of making the playoffs this season? So there's still plenty of time, 14 more games,
Yeah,
a third of
well,
the season.
how many games out are they from a playoff spot?
They are 12 points back, which would be 4 wins in deficit that they are right now,
Okay.
with
And
14 games remaining.
I guess they also got Sergio Busquets, Messi's former Barcelona teammate. So
Right. He's not
uh,
just
so
right.
so he's a good player too, or at least was a very good player fairly recently.
Mhm.
So I would say I think they're still too low, but maybe as high as 20% um odds with Messi and Busquets, and maybe they get some guys. I don't know if they've been injured or had problems since there, but I soccer it's one guy out of 11, and I
Mhm.
guess if Messi can score, or he's be a playmaker, I guess getting a goal or two here and
Mhm.
there is worth a lot sometimes.
Right.
So it's one of those things where he's like, even maybe 4 or 5 goals the rest of the season above what's expected
Mhm.
might get you to 3 wins more than you could have expected, and maybe you'd be close to a playoff
But
there, and
still,
maybe
but
yeah, but maybe you'd also be just playing better than you were before. So like, and one of the teams ahead of you falls back or something. So like it's yeah. So that's why I think 20%, 25%, something like that. I don't think they have. Um,
you're not far off of what the number was anyway. So the number that was given that I saw in the article that I read anyway was 16%. That's what they've got to.
16%. Okay.
But it was only, that's changing from 2%. That's a huge change. So really,
Yeah.
right? It's like 8 times the chance, right, than what it
Mhm.
was without him. So would you be shocked if they make the playoffs?
No, I would be surprised, but not shocked.
Yeah. I don't think
So
I'd be shocked at all. I don't
I don't think
I don't
any
expect it, but also would not be surprised at all.
Also, I don't follow MLS closely enough to be shocked by anything that happens,
Yeah.
short of like an actual shocking event. I don't know. We'll talk about what those shocking events would be, but like, I
An alien UFO lands on a
and yeah,
pitch during a game, and maybe no one notices. Is that what you're? Would that be
I was
that? Would
well,
that
I
be
was trying to
more
think of one that
impressive than?
didn't involve any like horrific injuries or something. Like maybe lightning strikes like a goal and the goal sets is catches on fire or something. That would be and like nobody was hurt. Something like
Right.
that.
Right.
Surprise would be fairly, I guess, shocking. But um, yeah, so I guess 16% is yeah, it's so I was pretty close, I guess, for compared
Yeah.
to what the experts wanted. Speaking of speaking of the other big soccer news in world soccer, I guess we had the Gold Cup, the CONCACAF tournament where the United States actually lost in the semifinals. Mexico ended up winning, but there's also the Women's World Cup coming up in a couple of days. I think it starts on Thursday, so the day this airs, down under in Australia and New Zealand. The U.S. women are the favorites. They've won two in a row. Do you have any predictions for the Women's World Cup? It's the first time there have been 32 teams, and historically, when those lower teams end up playing like the women's team, like they're usually more like decent and competitive teams because of just the way soccer is on the men's side than there is on the women's side because of inequality issues in a lot of countries and things like that where women are not
Hmm.
really given a chance to perform, especially compared to their counterparts in Europe or North America. Um, do you think? Yeah, do you think this is a third win in the row for the U.S. women, or is it somebody else's chance this time?
I don't want to bet against the U.S., especially the U.S. women's national soccer team, because yeah, they're great to watch. I watch more women's soccer than I watch men's soccer, so uh,
USA is plus 225. England is plus 375. Germany plus 650. Spain plus 700. France plus 800. Those are the top uh, five teams. Australia plus 1200. Um, so those are like the top um, teams for the. So I guess England is the second favorite, and then Germany has won before, I think. Spain and France have become much bigger women's soccer countries over the last decade than they were like in the Mia Hamm
mhm.
era of USA soccer, women's soccer. So a lot of the European countries have really caught up because in Europe it was seen like it still is in a large extent in Latin America soccer as being a very kind of macho game,
Mhm.
whereas in the United States soccer is not seen as terribly macho, and so that's partly why women were given a chance to play much more. And I guess the idea of women's sports is something that we have had here for especially since Title IX passed in the early 70s. We devoted many more resources to that. Unlike some maybe other countries are catching up now, and presumably that's why they're catching up to the United States in terms of talent. But yeah, I don't know who's going to win. I would guess probably not the United States. They don't seem to have like a lot of their big stars. Like Megan Rapinoe is on her last legs, basically. I think Rose Lavelle, who was the best player they had 4 years ago, has been injured. So Alex Morgan, I guess, is still on the team, but I always thought she was famous because she was good looking more than she was like a really good player. Um, but and she's kind of getting older now too. So I don't know who. There's a lot of young players apparently on the team, so maybe that'll get some young blood going and changing of the guard. But
But
I
this
wouldn't
this
be.
is our opportunity to actually pay attention to it because I haven't been at least anyway. But
Yeah, I've read a few articles here and there. Um,
World
yeah,
Cup is the time to like yeah.
Julie
If you're
Ertz and
not
Kelly
if you're not
O'Hara
a
are still on
soccer
the
fan, this is
team.
where you watch it, right?
Yeah. Um, but it's a lot of those older players are going to be mainly played as substitutes.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know. Uh, I would say if I had to say US or the field, I would say the field. Um,
I'd take the USA. Come
Pick
on, Mike.
USA.
Be a homer.
I'll be the
Contrarian.
yeah. Usually I play the homer and you play the contrarian. This time we're switching around.
Like it so.
Yeah, so I'll say I technically I want the United States to win, but I would say I think probably they won't. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Australia won because it's in Australia, and they're like the sixth favorite. So that would be my sneaky pick, Australia.
They should have a home field
Yeah,
advantage, right?
yeah. New
Their
Zealand is, I
crowds
guess,
should be pretty loud, pretty raucous.
yeah, yeah. So there's some games in Australia, some games in New Zealand. New Zealand, I guess, is not as good at women's soccer as Australia is. They're like plus 15,000, so they're like 10 times less likely than Australia is thought to be to win. So,
That's
but
probably the population difference, though, too, isn't it?
yeah, probably that could be. Yeah, it was one of those things where, well, I guess you only need, population can only do so much because you
Yeah,
only need 11 or maybe 15 good players. If you can get 15 players out of a small group, like it doesn't matter how many extra good players you have because it's I guess
right.
this is why Brazil is like usually the favorite because they're like the biggest good soccer in terms of population, the biggest population that's a good soccer team, but they can only put 11 of their guys on
Yeah.
that
But
team.
you're getting into like standard deviations of from the norm though too, right? So you
Yeah,
can find multiple guys that are athletes that are several standard deviations away
yeah.
from norm where
But
you
then
may
you have
not even have that
Croatia.
many
Yeah,
standard deviations from a smaller population then, right? So
yeah. But like a country like Croatia has done very well, even though their population is like less than Missouri, and they can, was able to Luka Modric and some other good players. They could, they made the World Cup finals uh, in 2018, and they made the semifinals in 2022, losing to um, they won the third place game. They lost to Argentina in the semifinals. Where
it's only a factor of five though, Mike. Five times the population.
uh, yeah, so Argentina, I guess, won over France in penalties. In 2022. I'd completely forgotten who actually won because it was the 2022 World Cup in Qatar was a mess already.
Yeah, right.
Being in December, and but there was a really good game. It was 3-3 in the final, but then of course it kind of had to be ruined by penalties, which I guess there's some drama to it, but I don't find shootouts to be good ways to determine the winner of an important game. I would just keep
Do you
playing.
think NBA games should end in a free throw shooting contest?
Yeah, no, no. I think they should just keep playing. And it's like I guess it's cultural for some. I guess the idea is, well, you got to run a lot, but like it's the final of the World Cup. Just run and
Yeah,
settle it. It's like Wimbledon in the fifth set. At least for many years, like just finish the fifth set. Somebody's got to win. And
yeah,
if it's down to like if there's no separation, why do we think that the penalty kicks up, kind of randomness of penalty kicks is any better than like
yeah,
which team is in better shape at the end or gets a
yeah.
lucky bounce here that I so I would be I know everybody thinks that like that one like the most iconic moment of women's soccer is the Brandi Chastain penalty kick shootout and they won against China, but the U.S. was overwhelmingly favored to win that game, and they went to
Yeah,
penalties, and they happened to get lucky because they won the penalty shootout.
yeah.
And so I don't like.
I think a lot of it's like they're just concerned that the quality of play will get worse as the game goes on, and they don't. I I'm just saying that's probably what the argument
I
is
guess
too.
if you think that football is the beautiful game and that's all you care about, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it seems like
yeah,
the Germans
yeah.
when
Who were those two tennis players that played like those like 50 game
that
fifth
was John. It was Isner and
Isner? Yeah,
um
that's right.
Mahu, Nicholas Mahu.
Was it two different times that they met in the? and played those like really long games, or was it just Isner that had two different Wimbledon long?
So this was a 2010 Wimbledon, lasted for 11 hours and 5 minutes. It was 70-68 in the fifth set. And it was in the first round.
Yeah.
I didn't remember it was in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think
2010
he made
Wimbledon.
it very far either. He
Well,
was like
no,
what,
like that's
right?
70-68 is 10 sets of 7-6 tennis, more than 10 sets. Like, so that was like he played like 11 extra sets. So that was like a 15, it was like a 15 set match for one game. Like that's just crazy. Which I can see maybe why you would end that one. Oh, yeah, Isner did also in 2018 in the semifinals have the third longest match. He lost to Kevin Anderson
So it was a different
20,
opponent. Yeah, it wasn't. He didn't
26.
face Mahut again.
No,
Yeah.
he lost 26-24 in um, the 2018 Wimbledon semifinal. So he had that extra long match. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one lasted 6 hours and 36 minutes. The other one lasted 11 hours. 5 minutes.
Almost twice as long.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's one of those things like in those matches, usually I think somebody just kind of gets tired and gives up. It's a little bit like who can keep their hand on the car the longest to
Yes.
win. And like it's just one of those like um things where those when it's the last two, you don't want to lose it to the other person. You're going to
Yeah.
keep it on there as long as you can. So that's why, and it goes really long. Like if you're number 4 or 5, like if you whatever, I'm going to get out. But if you're one of those last two, you don't want to. And I think that's kind of what it is. That fifth set, it's like the two with the hand on the car, and if it goes that long, it's going to keep.
They're in it till it's over,
In
right?
until
Yeah.
it's over. Um, Speaking of in it till it's over, do you we have? Do you think the Tennessee Titans have made their way into the playoff discussion for the AFC with their signing of DeAndre Hopkins? People thought maybe the Chiefs could get back into it, the Hopkins sweepstakes, but Hopkins wanted more money. I think he signed 2 years for $26 million base
Mm,
salary, and then up to 32 million. So that's similar to what Odell, a little bit less, but similar to what Odell Beckham got from the Ravens. Um,
right.
but now we have DeAndre Hopkins as being a target for Ryan Tannehill, or maybe who knows, Will Levis, or not Will Levis. Yeah, right. Or yeah, it was Will Levis. Malik Willis, whoever ends up being
Yes.
the backup quarterback. Um, but I think Tannehill, if he is if he's healthy again, I think he's a pretty solid quarterback. And they have um, Derrick Henry, of course, and now with DeAndre Hopkins, they have 3 star players on off, or 2 great skill position players. They have a strong
Hmm.
defense.
Hmm.
They've always given the Chiefs fits when they're healthy. When they had, a couple years ago, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. They were
Hmm.
in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs uh, back in 2019. Do you think the Titans can are maybe the favorites now in the NFC South over the last year's win, the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Personally, I don't, but I think, Jacksonville, I don't think has probably peaked yet. Maybe I think you and I were talking before about, maybe having a bit of a relaxed year after they've popped up a long way, made a big stride, right? Um, but I think Jacksonville's kind of still on their way up, is
Hmm.
my guess, at least anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe the point that to be made though is about Tennessee's receiver core. Can you name another Tennessee receiver?
Traylon Burks was signed as a first round draft pick last year out of Arkansas, and um, he was signed basically to replace
Robert Woods,
n-
probably right.
um, no, it was I can't think of his name now. He was on the Eagles this past year when they
Oh,
traded um, AJ Brown, yeah. When they traded
ah,
AJ Brown, I was thinking Antonio. It wasn't Antonio Brown. It was
yes,
I couldn't get
right.
Antonio Brown in my head. Yeah, it was AJ Brown. So like they had AJ Brown, and they were really
Hmm.
good when they had him, and then they got rid of Brown.
Hmm.
Tannehill got hurt. Then they
Right.
got got into that tail. Then Malik Willis wasn't very good. They had Joshua Dobbs playing. So they didn't
Well,
really have
Derrick
a
Henry was
quarter.
hurt too, right?
Derrick Henry got hurt. They didn't have a quarterback, and they still gave the Chiefs and some other teams tough games until they really went into that slide. So they only
Yeah.
lost the division by one game. They were eight,
Hmm.
and I think they were 8-9. Jacksonville was 9-8. So I and Jacksonville is getting Calvin Ridley back, or starting to get them for the first time. They signed him before last season, but then he had the gambling suspension. So Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence, you could say, has a really good new receiver to throw to. I don't think
Mhm.
Ridley is Hopkins, but he's younger than
It was a
Hopkins.
2 game difference. Jacksonville was 9-8. Tennessee was 7-10 last
Oh,
season.
7-10, they fell. Okay, I think if they
They
had both
actually
finished
lost their last 7 to finish
lost
the
the last
season.
season, yeah, they were good for a while, and then like they beat Green Bay really badly, right?
Mhm. Yeah, Henry and Tannehill make a big difference, right?
Yeah, so I think
Not
I
big.
my bet I would say if I were betting on the NFC South or AFC South, I think I would favor Tennessee because I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a slump for Jacksonville, and I
Mm,
think because
it's
usually if
a
they do
sophomore slump kind of thing.
sophomore slump, like if you do better than expected, I think with a new coach the first year, you're not
Yeah.
quite as good the second year. And the Chiefs were like that with Andy Reid when they had a really good first season. I think they were 11-5 after finishing 2-14 the year before, and then they I think dropped like 9-7 the next year. Then that's the only team that the Chiefs have had under Reid that hasn't made the playoffs. So was the second year under Reid after a really transformative first year. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that happens to the Jaguars, or I think the New York Giants are probably also very likely to have that happen as well, or maybe also the Vikings because they were in their first year and had a surprisingly good season. They won all those close games. So those would be the three teams that I think might drop that people are not.
Relax a bit from there.
Yeah, like new
They
coaches, second year
return
coaches,
to
more success than you thought the first year. It's going to be tougher the next year, and
yeah.
that's
So maybe from Tennessee's perspective though, yeah, are they worried about the 2 bottom teams, the division, making progress? Indy or Houston?
I think you can still say the Colts have had like the makeup of a strong team. Like their line is pretty good. Their offensive line, they
Mhm.
have um, a solid defense. I don't think they have a quarterback unless Richardson really becomes something. He has a lot of upside, but I don't think this first year is going to be the year he shows it. So I
Didn't put a lot of expectation
guess they
behind
have
it though.
Jonathan Taylor as a running back. Running backs, though, are increasingly devalued, even if they're very good. So
Yeah.
I think Indianapolis is a much bigger threat than Houston is as a
Mm.
spoiler in the AFC.
I think we may have lost your sound here. I don't. I'm not hearing you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Back. It's back.
Okay, I don't know. I lost your sound for a little bit too, so
No.
maybe Zoom. But
Maybe. Yeah. Just a little glitch.
but
Anyway,
yeah,
it was
do
just
you
like the
think?
last sentence that you said was
Okay, so I was thinking, do you think Houston or Indianapolis will be better next year?
Well, I
I
think
gave the
that
reasons for.
the one interesting thing I think is that maybe Houston could be just a tad better. Uh, well, I guess they're having like wholesale changes there too, right? Like their coaching staff has turned over. They had a bunch of draft picks this year, right? And the number one receiver from last season from Tennessee is now in Houston too. So
Robert
maybe
Woods, yeah,
maybe that'll have an effect too. So I mean, Hopkins is having to come in to basically replace their number one receiver. So it's really I mean, I don't
yeah,
know
it's
that
really
it's really
replacing.
much of a change from what they had last year, but because it's not like they're adding a guy that can be 1,000-yard receiver to a guy that already had 500-600 yards last year. This is like replacing a 500-yard receiver who was the team's leader last season.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have a quarterback really most of last season,
That's also true though. So the
and
numbers are a little bit skewed maybe.
Tannehill's on probably the downslope of his career. But I think if Tannehill does okay, I think it's like if they start thinking, well, we have to go to Levis instead of Tannehill, I think that's a sign that Tennessee is not playing for this year, but maybe playing for the future. But
Yeah.
I think there's still 1 year that they might have a run in them, and that's maybe this year. I think Houston. I guess the argument for Houston maybe being better than Indianapolis is that I think C.J. Stroud, their rookie quarterback, has a higher floor
Mm,
than Richardson does. So maybe he's more polished from the get go and able to do more. But I don't I don't really like the Demeco Ryan's hire because he's a defensive coach, and I think in this day and age, having a defensive minded head coach is it's a zag when other people are zigging, but I think
yeah.
sometimes just to do that is I don't know. It's one of those things where like I think certain people like an attitude, and defensive coaches have this attitude, but in reality, I think in the NFL being like an offensive type of team, having an extra like so the head coach is kind of an extra coach in addition to the regular staffs. Like Andy Reid, it's like Andy Reid plus an offensive staff. That is why the Chiefs' offense is so good.
Mm,
I think having an extra defensive mind in there doesn't. I think it doesn't do that much to me. For me, um, I think really you're handicapping yourself if you don't have an offensive head coach.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can see what Belichick's done in the last several years without Brady to help. I think there's, you know,
Yeah.
Sean McDermott hasn't been able to, turn Buffalo into a Super Bowl winner. Although Buffalo's problems have been defensive as much as more than they've been offensive, kind of ironic. But I know, so that's my 2 cents for the AFC South. I think people we're sleeping on Tennessee. I think now maybe Tennessee is a credible playoff contender.
Hmm.
That's so. I
They
think
were
things
they
might
were
change.
looks like they were 3 slots out of the playoffs last season, level with the Jets. So then, which of those two teams do you think will have more wins at the end of the season? The new look Jets or the DeAndre Hopkins Titans?
Well, I think having Aaron Rodgers really helps the Jets, but the problem for the Jets is they play in a better division than
Mm,
the
absolutely.
uh, the Titans do, and I think the Titans' schedule.
It doesn't look
Uh,
too bad. They have to play the Bengals relatively early.
who's the NFC um, opponents that Tennessee?
Tennessee gets the Saints.
Oh, so they're playing the NFC South. So that's a good division to play against. Um,
They get the Falcons like in late October.
yeah. because the NFC South is the worst division, other than, I think the worst division in the NFC probably.
If they get the Seahawks later.
Oh, so that's their extra. That's their 17th game, I guess, is Tennessee Seattle.
I only see three NFC teams. Oh, Tampa. There's
Yeah,
Tampa.
yeah, the Bradyless uh
Yeah.
Bucks.
Yeah, so
I
they have a pretty decent schedule, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think, and the Jets, I think, play a tougher schedule because I think they play the AFC West. I think 'cause they play the Chiefs and as their divisional opponent, and I think as a divisional rivals. I think maybe you could say AFC North, AFC West on total is probably kind of a wash, but
Hmm.
I think the Jets play the NFC East. So
Yeah.
they play the Cowboys, they play the Eagles, the Giants, and the
Eagles and
Commanders, or
Giants
whatever
both
they're
got
whatever
beat.
they're going to be called by the season if they
Yeah.
can't keep the Commanders name. Uh,
Commanders on Christmas Eve.
so that's a tougher schedule the Jets have. So
They also
if
get
it's
the Falcons.
okay,
No, that'll be a common opponent anyway,
common
too.
opponent, yeah, the Falcons, and I guess so.
On top of what other common opponents they
I
have.
I don't know if I like the. I wouldn't be surprised if they have similar records, but
Yeah.
I think the Titans are a better team than the Jets. I think they both have good defenses. The Jets had a really good defense last year.
Mhm.
They didn't have a quarterback, so maybe you could say having Rodgers instead of Wilson or Mike White is a big step up. But the Tennessee didn't have a quarterback much of the year either, and Tannehill over Joshua Dobbs or Malik Willis is a big step up if he can play well. And they got a better offensive weapon than the Jets did when they got Nicole Hardman, or I guess they'll have some of the Brees Hall back maybe from injury, although sometimes
Mhm.
this
Supposed to be.
sometimes the next year after your knee injury is not as good as the year after that. So Garrett
Yeah.
and
Being joined by some other Iowa State guys too. Uh,
Alan
Will
Lazard,
McDonald,
Alan
the
Lazard,
draft,
yeah,
the draft pick, Will McDonald, defensive end,
uh-huh.
and yeah, Alan Lazard came over just before Rodgers did too. Yeah, wide receiver.
Yeah, and Garrett Wilson, I guess it's going to be in his second year. Maybe he can uh, have another good year. But I don't. I think the spotlight will be on the Jets more than it will be on Tennessee, and maybe
Oh, for sure.
so. I think Tennessee will have less pressure on them. So,
Mm.
and I
Because
think
the Jets are also the Hard Knocks team, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe Tennessee. I don't know what the other revised odds. Um,
I haven't looked to see if the Hopkins deal has made a new updated odds.
yeah, right now Chiefs are plus 600. That's the on FanDuel. I'm looking at FanDuel. Um, Tennessee is plus 6,000,
Hmm.
and the Jets are plus 1,600 to win the Super Bowl. I think the Jets are higher than the Ravens, for example, plus 1,800. Higher than the Jags, plus 2,500. Chargers, plus 2,500. Dolphins, plus 2,500. I don't. I think that's. I think those are very optimistic odds for the Jets. And Rodgers has had trouble getting out of the NFC playoffs against quarterbackless teams or Tom Brady. Uh, then that one time, you know, I I don't see it. I like. I don't know. If I had to make a bet, I had $100 to bet on either Tennessee or New York. I would take Tennessee at four times. I think there's. I don't think the
Hmm.
Jets are four times as likely to win the Super Bowl as Titans.
Yeah. I just found this article from A to Z Sports that these simulations that were run showed that the Hopkins edition accounts for 0.4 more wins for the team this season, but that actually translates to a 6.5% higher playoff odds.
Hmm.
Just with the addition of the single player. I think a lot of that's just because they don't have like a number one receiver until now, right?
Yeah. It looks like on DraftKings, the Titans odds were plus 8,000. So that maybe they haven't updated much.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, if I had to, I guess you would bet on DraftKings or FanDuel right now, so you can get more out of
Yeah.
it.
Well, we're not far away from probably us talking about who we're going to be taking in the division round.
Yeah,
The
this
divisions.
weekend. Yeah, this
Yeah.
weekend is training camp, and I think rookies have already reported or are reporting right now for a lot
Report
of the teams.
tonight. Quarterbacks
So
and rookies, I guess, right?
yeah, so next week or the week after, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Um, I don't know if I'll be around Tuesday of next week. Maybe we can still do a power hour. Maybe we'll have to skip a week or do something else for the summer, or maybe just have a solo. Uh,
Just a rant. It'll just be
yeah.
a long monologue rant next week,
Or you
possibly.
can find a maybe you can find a guest host. Maybe you get Marina or somebody as your guest host.
Listen to me rant about the
It
Royals
could
for
be
an
like
hour.
it'll be like when Tony Kornheiser goes on vacation and you know
Yeah,
somebody comes in for him.
they bring in Pablo Torre or
Yeah,
Mina Kimes. Yeah, it'll be just like that.
maybe you can get Dan Levitard to replace me.
He's big time. I don't think he's available.
Yeah, probably. But we'll see who is available next week. Hopefully, you guys are available next week. Hopefully, you will enjoy the sporting weekend. Maybe watching the Women's World Cup, seeing how NFL training camp shakes out. For the Chiefs, we're kind of still wondering what's going to happen with Chris Jones. Is he going to hold out for his new contract? Things like that. But we'll talk about that as we uh, wind down the summer. And you have anything else to add, Dr. Scaff?
Mm.
All right.
Ranted
Thank
enough
you.
for one day.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on our little podcast here. As always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our channels or podcasts. And you can listen to all of our wonderful content and programming from the past couple of years. Sometimes some of it remains timeless, even if some of it is. There's never, I think you aren't going to be able to find another good discussion of the Quad Cities
Mm.
on another podcast or things like that. So
Not a
that
chance.
that's where we have cornered the market, even if nobody's aware of it. But we can talk about more of that next time on the Warning Track Power Hour. Until then, we'll wish you a good day.